Hello and welcome back to JBCTR, and on this absolutely glorious day I have Revo's Stage 2 Focus ST, and kind of excited about this one. Okay, so what exactly is this car? Well, clearly it's a Ford Focus ST, and I drove the Performance Edition that was completely stock a few months ago, I think, and I thought it was a very good package. It was just a really good all-round car because it can do all the practical stuff. It's got loads of like comfort stuff to make it really dailyable. My biggest gripe with it is that although it was quite a fast car, it didn't feel fast in the cabin. So with Revo's Stage 2 package just adding a shed load more power into the car, is it now that little bit more exciting? And the answer is a resounding yes. This car is quite significantly more exciting to drive than a stock one. But this car does not just have Revo software on it, it's got a whole host of other hardware which all add to that driving experience. So let me talk you through this car and I'll show you what's on it. And we'll start with these, which are probably the most obvious on the car that sort of hints that it's, you know, the Revo car, apart from obviously these large stickers down here. And that is these flow-formed RFO 19 lightweight alloys. Now, of course, reducing unsprung mass is good in so many ways. It helps acceleration, it helps braking, but it also helps the suspension because it's not got as much weight to sort of control and tame as it goes over those bumps. So these are just so good, and I had them on my Fiesta ST as well, and I really liked them. They're also a very slightly wider ET, which gives the car pretty wide stance. So yeah, they're pretty cool. And behind them are the Revo All-Con 6-pot brakes, which are pretty hard to miss. They are just superb. We'll get into that a little bit more when we drive the car, but from an aesthetics perspective, I just think they look wicked. And down the front, you've got Revo's own intercooler to help regulate the intake temperatures, which you can't actually see at the moment because it's got an active shutter in front of it, which is shut because the car is stationary. But I'm kind of hoping I can get some footage, maybe. We'll see. And under the bonnet, we have this massive intake that goes right the way back to the turbo. And I must admit, it makes a load of cool choo-choo noises and makes the car go faster. So what's not to love? And how did I forget? At the back here, we've got a Miltech GPF back exhaust with the carbon tips. Now, the GPF back is quite important here because this is a Stage 2 car, but this one has both the stock CAT and the stock GPF still in place, which means that this is full MOT passable and fully road legal, which is epic news. And after that bit of yobbery, let's go for a drive and show you what this thing can do. So if we start this review in normal mode, actually you wouldn't notice too much different from stock. It's very pleasant in here, it's nice and chill. The Miltech GPF back is very well behaved if it's not in sport mode because there is no overrun, and it's not actually that much louder than it was at stock. Yeah, the only thing that you'd really notice in normal mode is when you sort of put your foot down a little bit, you'll hear that intake, which of course never really goes away because it's always there. But as soon as you knock it into sport, which of course we can do with a single push of a button now, you get those overruns again, Exhibit A, and you can start to experience the power. Now again, I didn't actually exceed the national speed limits just then, but having that additional power makes this car so much more fun within the speed limits. I mean, clearly it's way more capable than the stock version, but because you get that surge of acceleration, it's just so much more exciting. And that was the biggest issue I had with the stock car, is because it was such a bigger platform than the Fiesta, it just didn't feel as exciting. But I feel like with the Revo Stage 2 package, you kind of get a little bit of that excitement back. In terms of suspension, this car is just running the stock suspension. Obviously it's got the Revo lightweight alloys, and actually they make quite a big difference. The car still feels quite nimble, and in sport mode and track mode you still get that adjustable suspension that you get at stock. I really quite like it. On these like twisty roads here, it feels firm but quite well planted. I would say that on the motorway in sport, the suspension is a bit too firm. You end up doing 70 miles an hour and jumping around like this, and it's just not that pleasant. So if you're on the motorway, use normal mode. But I mean, as a setup on these country lanes, stock suspension is actually really good on this car. That overrun is ridiculous. But in terms of launch control, they haven't actually changed the launch control at all, so it's still just as it was from factory. But when I tried launch control, I ended up doing an absolutely monstrous wheel spin. But when I tried to launch this thing manually, I found that I got a slight chirp of the tyres at the beginning, and then I was away. And that is just so much better than trying to use the stock launch control. And yeah, that's certainly the way to control this thing off the line when you've got the additional power that Revo provides. And talking of that power, let's pull over and then I'll talk you through a little bit more about what they did within the software. Now, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit around the Revo software that's in this car, because it's actually very interesting the way in which they pull the software together. And a lot of people will just be like, you want your car to go faster? Yeah, remap it, in it. But there's quite a lot more into it than just that. So for example, for stage 1 on the Focus ST, the Revo guys have set the radiator fan speeds to kick in to be a little bit higher, so they can pull those coolant temps down a little bit quicker. The active shutter at the front to allow that air to go over the intercooler opens that a little bit earlier. And all of this just kind of helps keep those temperatures down when the car is running a little bit more power. And for Revo's Stage 2 software, they've obviously gone that one step further with the safety precautions, and engine coolant temperature protection now kicks in at sort of 2 or 3 degrees lower than it does at stock, to make sure that we're not pushing the boundaries of anything within the car. Now, in terms of, from a driver's perspective, which I guess is where it's most noticeable, clearly you get more power, which is cool. I don't have any figures for you today, unfortunately, but let me tell you, it is more powerful. But you also get left foot braking, you get further enhanced overrun, which gives you more sort of pops and bangs and that kind of stuff. And one thing that is really quite cool is that the rev limiter has been increased only slightly to sort of 6,900, with a little soft limiter put just before that. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but if you're chasing 0 to 60 times, which some people like to do, it means you can now hit 65 in second gear, and you don't need to get to third to hit that 65 mile an hour. So you should see quite a significant increase in 0 to 60 times if that's your bag. And I might have a go at some Draggy Times, but we'll see. Right, nerdy techie talk over. Let's go do some more driving. Now, one thing I didn't mention during my tech talk is that Revo have revamped the way in which the throttle responds to your inputs. And I'd say it feels different from stock, and arguably a little bit more progressive, but it's really quite subtle. But when you put it next to the brake pedal with the Revo All-Cons at the front, you have a really nice driving setup, because the brakes are almost exactly as progressive as the throttle, and it just feels really intuitive to jump from between like the two pedals, and it's just really easy to modulate exactly how the car is responding, and it's just really nice. It's a nice feeling. And one more advantage of having that extra power is that although this is not meant to be a motorway car, it was already quite a good motorway car as stock. But with the extra power from Revo, just having it in 6th gear, you just put your foot down a little bit more and you waft past loads of people. So in short, what Revo have done here is they've taken a car that was already quite good, but was a little bit flat in the sort of driver excitement department, and just added more drama everywhere. You have that induction kit at the front, which gives you loads more character out of the engine bay. You've got that Miltech GPF, which is just slightly obnoxious when you want it to be, which is pretty cool. And then you add extra power, which makes getting to the speed limit much more of an event than it was when this car was stock, where really you had to be going in excess of the speed limit to really make it come alive and make it zing. But now you can have fun at whatever speed, and it's just brilliant. That extra power you can use to pull yourself around corners harder, woo, and faster than you could in the stock car. And overall, what's not lot to like? Fantastic. So, my time with the Revo Focus has come to an end. But there's one last thing I did want to talk to you about, and that was my Draggy Times with this car, because clearly when you tune it, you're kind of hoping it's going to be faster. Now, I'll be honest, I kind of run out of time for this. So I did one 0 to 60 run that was invalid, meaning that it was either downhill or uphill, but I achieved a 5.1 second 0 to 60, which is 0.4 off the manufacturer's 0 to 60 time, which is quite impressive, I think, considering I literally had like 1 or 2 runs and that was it. I also timed a 30 to 70 run, in which times I did like a 4.21, I think it was. Now, I have no idea what this car does 30 to 70 as stock, so if one of you have one of these as stock, could you please time your 30 to 70 run and let me know if mine was any good. And with that, I think we'll leave it there. So if you enjoyed this one, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of me and cars and that kind of stuff, feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.